Wanted to do a video of this side project I'm doing, basically for my grandkids or whatever child wants to ride this thing. But what this is a, we're thinking it's around a 1980 Simplicity Wonderboy lawnmower. It is a joystick control, and when I saw that online, I thought, wow, I'd love to have this thing. You know, I'm in the airplanes, and this joystick is perfect to make a children's ride to drive around the yard in and make it an airplane. So just kind of a low altitude cruiser. They can drive around the yard and just have fun with it. And it does have a little hitch mechanism on the very back underneath that I can maybe even pull some kids on carts with it. But it's just going to be like a small airplane, just something to make it look like it's an airplane. But anyway, yeah, I saw this joystick, had to have it. How this works is, you know, forward is neutral. There's a rod that comes back, and this continues back and goes over to, there's an idler pulley that goes on here, and it just puts tension on the belt, and that's neutral. So to go forward, you just kind of that puts tension on the belt that'll be back here, and then you steer it left and right. So pretty cool. And I thought, oh, I gotta have it. It was online. I got it for $5. Nobody bid on it. It was a bid. Nobody bid on it. It was local, and I snagged it. Now, it was in pretty bad shape. Everything was kind of, I mean, the differential all did turn, but it was grindy. All this stuff in here, all these pulleys and rods were all seized up. So I took all this completely apart. Actually took the differential apart, which is quite interesting. It's a pretty complicated differential. It is a limited slip. It has a high-low gear. There's 2 sets of planetaries and a sun gear. There's 2 sun gears. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. There's a couple 2 large gears in here, and then there's these 2 little pinion gears. And what that's for is this lever here. That would be forward, which would engage this back little gear onto this large gear. And reverse is down, and that would engage this one and get it spinning the other direction. Neutral would be right about in the middle there someplace. But anyway, yeah, all this was seized up. Took it all apart, replaced bushings up in here, greased it, took all this completely apart, took all the sun gears out, inspected them, greased everything, and it's really interesting. There was 4 items that were found to be bad. No, I'm sorry, 4 items plus there's 2 brass bushings here, there's 2 up inside of here, 2 over here, and 1 out there on the end. And believe it or not, of all the items that were bad, I was able to find all the bad items on eBay. I don't know how, but even these 2 little pinion gears that were chewed up, I actually found brand new ones online, new old stock. There are probably only 2 left in the world. And of course, I replaced those, replaced the bushings across the whole axle. So it's nice, and this thing was really wobbly, and it's nice and tight now. And I actually found these seals at old Williams tractors, I think, in Kentucky. Yeah, I called them up and they said, yeah, I think we have some. So I was shocked. So yeah, this has all been redone, greased up, works like a champ. It's nice and solid. It did come with an engine, a big old honkin' Briggs & Stratton. It's huge. It's a 5 3/4 horsepower. Has compression, no gas tank. You know, so I would have to go through this thing because I don't put anything on that's not known. And by the time I did all that and bought what I needed, it would probably be better off if I just bought another one. And sure enough, I found this really nice Briggs & Stratton in Cape May for $60. It actually has only 20 hours of operating time on it. And I mean, even the muffler shield's not rusted. It still has, we just put fresh gas in it and gave it 1 pull, starts right up. And yeah, it's got the throttle, it's got your choke, it's got your fuel on and off. Yeah, you see here, it's people think this means it's 9 horsepower, but that's not the case. It's 205 cc's, which comes out to be about 6.2 horsepower roughly. So it's a little bigger than the big old one that came with it. This 9.0 is more a torque, like an engine torque, like shaft torque. So it's pretty high torque, and that's because I had to turn a pressure pump on a water pressure cleaner, so has to have that torque to get that pump turned. So yeah, the pump kept on burning up on this guy, and the engine ran always fine, so he decided forget it, he's not buying another one. So took the engine off in the event somebody wanted it for a go-kart, and so I snagged it. So yeah, good deal, good find by me. And so also, as I mentioned, the only thing this thing did to stop is you threw this up in neutral, and then the manual says to kind of grind the gears, which makes sense, because that's probably why I found these two gears to be tore up. So I said, well, if we're going to be riding this thing, myself included, and kids, I'm going to go ahead and make sure it has a foot brake on it. So I'm going to put a foot brake on it with the rod going back. And I got this go-kart caliper along with a rotor. And pretty neat, very cheap. It wasn't, and it's a mechanical caliper. It's your lever. As soon as you hit that, it locks that thing up really tight. You can see it's a disc brake. I'll try to hold my camera, but as soon as you do that, it locks it in. And the only problem was the disc, the largest axles apparently they have on go-karts are 1 inch, and this is like a 1 1/4. So I got the disc anyway, realized I'll just machine this whole oversize. And I had to actually machine a keyway slot in my shaft and put a key in there. And because I machined this oversize, the hole, I had to extend the keyway a little longer to get my key in there. So works great. But here's the mounting bracket that I made for this. This end is only sitting on here, so I'll move this up. But I have the top of the bracket bent over the top of the engine mount area, and that helps any torque. When you put the brake on, this thing's going to probably want to torque up, so this is going to help it. This is mounted on with a bolt down below, and this is a really thick, pretty thick piece of steel. And there's another bolt. It's a stud. Actually, I welded through it, and so it's basically bolted on with two. There's a bolt and a stud. Not sure if you can see that or not. So also the caliper comes with this bracket, and this is supposed to be a floating caliper, just like a car. All right, this is supposed to be loose in this. It's not going to go anywhere. It's a groove, so it can't come out, and it's supposed to slide back and forth. I got to adjust the brake a little bit. It's a little loose, but I adjust that with this little thing over here. But anyway, I see a lot of people on YouTube. They want to take these two bolts and they want to mount it rigid using these two bolts. And that makes this caliper non-floating. And the reason why you want this to float is because, things are like this little rotor can be a little wobbly, which, is very common. It's just a very thin piece of metal. They get hot and they start to warp a little bit. Of course, they won't on this. That's for go-karts. This thing's not going to go that fast. And I think the top speed on this is like 5 miles an hour, where a go-kart could be, pretty excessive in 40, 35 mile an hour, something like that. So you're supposed to mount this bracket to a rigid point, and then this caliper just sits there. It's not going to go anywhere. The disc keeps it from sliding off. And that way, when you put the brake on, it kind of finds its own center, and it keeps the pads wearing even. All right, so that's why you want that thing to float. So that turned out pretty well. And then, as you can see, this is kind of a new hub here, because the original one, I just was sliding the original one off to put this rotor on, and I snapped it. This thing was so rusted together, I actually snapped the ears off. The original one, this was kind of tapered, so I couldn't grab it. So I had it out here, and sure enough, one of the ears broke. And it happened when I already broke the thing loose and it was coming off easy. So I probably hairline fractured it, and then I just finished it. So I had to make this hub out of quarter inch plate steel, or maybe that's 3/8 plate steel. I actually tapped them, threaded them. They're nice tight 3 lugs. Machined the center bore, welded it all together, and this thing's probably better than the cast one by far. So yeah, so all this has been taken apart, really working out well. So I have $5 in the Wonderboy itself. I have 60 in this. I think this was 45, this whole assembly here. And the tires I got brand new tires and inner tubes from the same vendor online. Here's the original hubs. I had to clean the rust off of them. I really shined them down, and I got Pour 15 anti-rust and heavy on them. The original hubs, these are split rim hubs, so you can mount the tires on easy. The bore, these are bushings, and the bore was gigantic. In fact, the axle was only 3/4 inch, and this hole's like an inch. So these rims are really wobbling. And by the time I've got brass bushings or machined new ones, because I'm sure I can't find them, I thought, wow, maybe I can just find new screw ones. And I did. I found these online. They came with 5/8 bearings, and my shafts are 3/4, so I managed to find bearings with 3/4 inch, which is pretty cheap. And what I'm going to do is, after I mount these, I actually drilled a hole and I tapped it for grease fitting. So once I put these split rims in here, you can see you put that through the tire and bolt these two together, and this can rotate nice. But yeah, I got this stuff for really cheap. In fact, Tractor Supply for 2 tires, and they were only 2-ply. I bought all 4 tires, 4 inner tubes, and these split rims for the price. I could have bought only 2 tires at Tractor Supply, so I got a really good deal. And they came from America. Now, whether they were made here, I don't think so. Of course, nothing is, but they're 4-ply as opposed to 2-ply from Tractor Supply, so I did pretty well. So grand total, I probably have, probably no more than 200 hours in it. I can't imagine it being more than that. Tires and everything, so it worked out well. So next thing is getting into the front end. I can see already that this axle here is nice and straight. And you can see here, this one's pointing that way, so I got a tie rod adjustment here. I can adjust these in and get those straight, which I'll do. But even so, if you put the joystick nice and straight, you can see the whole front end's kind of tilted, like cantilevered out. So this what it is, this T-pipe goes back up under the seat for mounting. There's a bushing missing here, so all you see is all thread. So I got to take this apart. So now that I got the back end how I want it, and everything's working great, now I'm going to take the front end and just kind of, there's really not much to this. I just want to take it apart, clean it, grease it up, make it look pretty, and get everything mounted, get the tires mounted. And once I get the tires mounted and the engine mounted, and get a pulley, I got the idler pull already, I see a belt. I'm going to take this thing for a spin just like you see it. And I'm going to have fun with that. So I'll videotape me taking this thing for a while. I'll probably just be sitting on this little plate where the seat goes. And I'll take it around the yard. So once I know that's all good, then I'll proceed with throwing the rest of my time and energy into making a fuselage and make this a cool little kid's ride. So once I get this whole frame done, the engine's coming off, the brake caliper's coming off, and I'm going to do a 2-part epoxy paint on it. A primer, a gray primer, just to kind of give it an airplane gray color. You won't see the frame, but you know, I'm going to get everything one color. You can see it's part blue, part red, and I don't know what else is on. But anyway, it's going to have a new life, but it's not going to be a lawnmower. It's going to be an airplane. All right, that's it.